Hello, fabulous family. Sally the Seeker here. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, or happy whatever you celebrate or don't celebrate. I decided to do some videos and spend Christmas or whatever you celebrate or don't celebrate, because I know the holidays are a challenging time of year. I know if you've lost one, even before I lost people in my life, there was something that the excitement builds up, even as an adult, but as a child, I think it builds up, the magic of it and Santa Claus and all that great stuff. And then it's kind of like a big letdown. You have this, just like anything really. But it's also a time I think people reflect on family and people feel lonely. And I've spent many a Christmas alone. And a lot of times it's been by choice. But you can still make the most of it. But I wanted to be present with you some way or another so that you wouldn't feel alone, because I know what it's like. And I assume people think a lot like me, or I think we're alike. I think we're all can be like very much alike and yet different. I think I keep bumping this tripod. I'm so sorry that Darrell is shaky here, but I'm going to try to spread some Christmas cheer, Hanukkah cheer, Kwanzaa cheer, as we make fun of Darrell. And so I'm trying my best to get some videos out. So if y'all are just sitting there with, you know, just thinking about stuff, we can think about how funny this dude is, without, of course, forgetting the main focus of this, and it's the victims, those who lost their lives and those who were witnesses to this horrible attack or were physical victims of it, who lived. Sometimes it's tougher for those who survive. They have survivor's guilt. But I just wanted you to know that I love you all. I'm with you, and I hope you never feel like you're alone, and you can click on any of my videos and you won't feel alone. So let's get going. We're getting very close to the testimony of Detective J. Carpenter. Now we have, and all of a sudden his name escapes me. Oh dear. I like him though. He's an officer who escorts Darrell to the place where Detective Carpenter ends up questioning him. And Darrell comes up with all these ridiculous lies. But I really like this officer. They'll say his name. I think it's Officer Lea, something like that. But what I like about him is that, well, for you ladies, he's going to be eye candy. I think he's very handsome. And he just looks like, just see if you feel the same way. He looks like he wants to laugh during the whole testimony. Like he's trying to keep a straight face. But I think, people, as we are now, of course, but even then, are just so done with Darrell and his foolishness. So let's go ahead and get going.
After the lunch, so you have another couple of hours, so you should be able to know about how long you're going to question them, and just give us who those are for each of those blocks, and then be ready for Mr. Marquez tomorrow.
I'll be ready for that, but
all right.
I'll probably have an idea of who I want to.
Sorry, I got it a little bit early, but
who I think should come in.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to provide.
He's not going to give him the order. We know all of this. It's so annoying.
If he wants our assistance, Your Honor, we will do that. Otherwise, he can be responsible for getting these witnesses here himself.
That's right.
You gotta cooperate with this process, or they're assisting you. Otherwise, you're going to be.
Sorry, I didn't mean to start this early, but now that I've already begun, this is all about him. Of course, again, the state is helping him, getting all these people in, but he doesn't see it that way. He acts like he's at the Hyatt and, deserves room service and all these special services. And he doesn't want to give the prosecution the order in which he wants his witnesses to appear. And So the judge tells him, this was earlier, we've probably all seen this. She says, well, then you can be responsible for calling them. Well, how am I supposed to do that? And that's just how Darrell is. He's not a problem solver. He wants to be difficult. That just adds more delay to this whole ridiculous process. The process isn't ridiculous. He is, and how he conducts himself during the process. Well, they didn't have to give me their order, so I'm not going to give him mine. He really feels like he's on the same playing field as the prosecution and everyone. I believe he even thinks he's a couple steps higher, which is absurd. But anyhow, we'll just kind of bear with him for a minute.
Responsible for telling these witnesses when to come in.
Oh, there we go.
So how am I supposed to do that?
Oh, I didn't realize that was going to come on. There you
Then
go.
you should cooperate with the state and their assistance to help you, sir.
I'm not going to give a specific order.
We don't care.
Sir, are you willing to provide the who the witnesses are by half day?
I just said that.
All right,
I
then
said
that's
I'm
what
not
I
gonna-
need by tomorrow
I said I'm
morning.
not giving an order. Is
That's
what I
fine.
said.
I'm okay with that, and the state will be okay with that because I said they'll be okay with that.
We're
So,
okay, Judge, thank you.
all right, thank you.
So what about what's supposed to be going on today? How late do we plan to go today?
Well, we'll have to see how long this witness lasts and if we can start the next witness. I 4:30, 5 o'clock, maybe even 5:30, we'll see. So, with that, let's bring the jury out.
Are we going to address subject matter jurisdiction at some point?
Hell no. Just stand up and be quiet.
Not beyond what I've already addressed, sir.
What you addressed it, you didn't prove it. You didn't verify it. It's not verified proof that you have subject matter jurisdiction yet. It's not been proven on the record.
Sorry, guys, you have to go through this. We'll go through it together. Nobody gives a crap about that, Darrell.
Is that a judicial determination, Your Honor, that you're not going to answer that?
Look at Basie. They do so well hiding their faces, but
Your
sometimes
request is noted for the record.
You
I've
see
already
that?
addressed it.
Is it noted for the record?
you can. If you Sue wants to laugh.
It should be noted for the record. Also, that's a tacit agreement.
All rise for the jury, please.
We'll tack it
Thank
your
you.
agreement in a minute.
You already been right.
Shut up. Oh my
When
gosh.
we go get the answer to that subject matter jurisdiction, though.
He thinks he is so lawyerly in front of the jury that he's not.
Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. Attorney Opper, you may call your next witness.
Thank you. The state calls Officer Lea.
Good afternoon, Officer Lea. If you would please make your way to my witness stand. When you get
Look at
there,
him.
Please remain standing, raise your
He's
right
sizing him
hand.
up.
My clerk Teresa will swear you in.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but
Yeah,
the truth? So
Officer
help you
Laija
God?
could.
Thank you,
Crush
sir.
you,
Please have a
Darrell.
seat. And I should say the witness stand. I don't have ownership over it.
See, look
But
at that
in any
smile,
event,
ladies.
state
Isn't
your
he
first and last
handsome?
names for the record.
First name Draelon, last name Laija.
Could you spell
Draelon.
both?
That's what his name is.
Draelon, last name Laija, Leija.
It sounds like he said lay high, didn't
Thank
he?
you.
Lay
Go
high,
ahead,
lay
your
high.
witness.
All
Anyhow.
right, thank you, Officer Lea. Sir, I'd like to direct your attention to the evening of November 21, 2021. Were you working on duty that afternoon?
Yes.
All right, I should ask, where do you work?
City of Waukesha Police Department.
Sorry about
How
that.
long have you been a police officer?
A little over 2 years.
Okay. So on that evening, were you aware that the parade was taking place in downtown Waukesha?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you work the parade?
No, ma'am.
Do you recall what time it was when you came on duty, sir?
Objection, relevancy.
Overruled. You may answer.
I believe it was a little after 5.
Were you scheduled to work that evening?
Yes.
Okay. And around the time of 12 a.m. midnight, so now I think we're getting into the next day of November 22 of 2021, were you asked to assist detectives at Waukesha Memorial Hospital?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you go to that location?
I did.
And did you meet with anybody there?
Yes, ma'am.
Objection leading.
Overruled.
Oh, God.
You may answer.
Yes, ma'am.
Who did you meet with?
I met with Detective J. Carpenter and acting detective at the time, Detective Stern.
Did they ask you to assist them in some fashion?
Yes, ma'am.
What did they ask you to do?
I was tasked.
Leading.
Overruled. You may answer.
I was tasked with transporting Mr. Brooks to the Muskego Police Department.
Okay. So at this point, Mr. Brooks is in custody.
Yes, ma'am.
Objection. I don't consent to being called that name.
Overruled. You may answer, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
And the person you were asked to drive to the Muskego Police Department, you see him in this courtroom here today.
Yes, ma'am.
Would you identify him, please? And if Mr. Brooks would please remove his mask, Your Honor.
Objection. I don't
Sir,
consent to
please
being
remove
called
your
that
mask.
name.
Oh, thank you. You were.
Oh, shush.
Go ahead.
Look
It's
at
a
him.
black male sitting at the table with a black suit and the mask that he just put back on.
Where did you first meet?
Oh, hold on. The record should reflect he did point to the defense table, and the record will reflect he identified him. Go ahead.
Okay. Where did you first meet Mr. Brooks?
Objection. I don't consent to being called that name.
Overruled. You may answer, sir.
The Waukesha Memorial Hospital police hold room.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that? Mr. Brooks was talking over you.
Of course he was.
Objection. I don't consent to being called that name.
Overruled. Go ahead, sir.
Look at it. Just watch
At
him.
the
He,
Waukesha
I
Memorial
swear he looks like he
Hospital and,
wants
police hold room.
to
All
laugh
right.
the whole
And
time.
where were you going to take him?
To the Muskego Police Department.
Why?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
Detective Carpenter said that he was going to be there so that he can question them sometime in the near future.
Is the Muskego Police Department located in the city of Waukesha?
No, ma'am.
Objection relevancy.
Overruled. You may answer.
No, ma'am.
Why did you take him back to your police department?
Objection.
Overruled. You may answer.
At the time, we were at the annex, which is our older police department. Our police department that we usually report out of was being renovated, so we didn't have any holding cell.
Okay. And to your knowledge, did the Muskego Police Department have a holding cell at their facility?
Objections.
You don't even know what
Overruled.
you're
You may-
objecting
You
to.
may answer.
Yes, ma'am.
And they were willing to house Mr. Brooks there
Excuse
under
me.
mutual aid?
Objection. I don't consent to being called that name.
Oh, Lord.
Overruled. You may answer, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
So, you put him in your squad car?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, tell us about that, your drive.
Oh, Lord.
Objection relevancy.
Overruled. You may answer.
So I put Mr. Brooks in my squad car. We left the hospital around, I took custody of him around 12:18 a.m. We typed in my GPS to the Muskego Police Department. We left the hospital. We had to go eastbound in Wisconsin, which is a road that's parallel to Main Street where the parade was taking place.
Okay,
Once we passed the, while going eastbound in Wisconsin, there was multiple marked squad cars with their emergency lights on.
Excuse
do
me,
you know what
guys. I'm
they were
sorry.
doing?
Relevancy.
Overruled. You may answer, sir.
They were blocking traffic, investigating an incident that transpired earlier that evening.
Okay. Is it just, excuse me, is it just you and Mr. Brooks in the squad car?
Objection. I don't consent to being called that name.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes, it was just me and Darrell Brooks in the squad car.
Okay.
Objection. I don't consent to being called that name.
That guy doesn't give a flip.
And as you traveled in the area of Wisconsin Avenue, did Mr. Brooks make any statements?
Objection. I don't consent to being called that name.
Overruled. You may answer, sir.
Yes, Mr. Brooks said once we were going eastbound in Wisconsin, and I quote, he said, damn, it looks like they were dealing with something heavy.
Okay.
Sure.
Did you reply to him in any way?
No.
Did he continue to speak?
Yes, ma'am.
What else did he say?
Not surprising.
He asked me if there was a basketball game going on or something tonight, and to which I replied, I'm not sure.
Okay. Did you continue on transporting him to the Muskego Police Department?
Yes, ma'am.
And at some point, were you responsible for watching over him at the Muskego Police Department?
Yes, ma'am.
Objection relevancy.
Overruled. Your answer may stand. Go ahead and just wait until I rule on the
I'm
objections,
sorry.
please. That's okay.
How long did you watch him for?
Objection relevancy.
Overruled.
believe we got to the jail around closer to 1 a.m. I watched him up until about 7 a.m.
What kinds of things do you remember he did overnight?
Objection. Relevancy.
Overruled. You may answer.
I know that he was fed around 2 a.m. He slept most of the night. He got up around 5 a.m., asked for water. I got him water. And he asked to make a phone call to his daughter.
Okay. Did you allow that?
No.
Did, you said it appeared he was sleeping throughout most of the night?
Yes, ma'am.
Objection. Hearsay.
Overruled.
It's not hearsay because he was there.
Did
At
you
any-
answer?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Go ahead.
All right. Other than asking to call his daughter, did he make any other statements to you that you can recall?
Objection. Relevancy.
Overruled. You may answer.
I remember he made some complaints that the room was too bright. He wanted me to dim the room. That's all that I remember. He
Okay. Like the lights in the room were too bright?
correct in the cell, holding cell.
Did you turn off the lights for him?
Objection. Leading.
Overruled. His answer may stand.
And were you relieved by another officer then later that morning?
Objection. Relevancy.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes, ma'am.
Excuse me again.
Thank you, sir. I don't have any other questions.
Here we go.
Lee Cross.
Take a deep
Yeah.
breath.
That's a yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So rude.
Go ahead.
You said that you recall checking every 30 minutes on doing like well-being checks, right?
That's correct.
And how do you know for sure that the suspect was asleep?
Oh gosh.
I don't know for sure if you were sleeping. I know that the cover was over your head, and I would every time I go and check in on you, I could see that your chest was rising up and down from underneath the blanket. So it's a possibility that you were sleeping. It's a possibility that you weren't. I know that you were uncovered, so it appeared that you were asleep most of the night.
So it'd be fair to say you're not sure.
Answer stands, Your Honor. It's asked and answered.
Objection.
Overruled. He may answer.
Could have been sleep. You probably was asleep. You probably wasn't. But the blanket was over your head most of the night.
And do you recall why the suspect was not allowed a phone call?
I was told that you had to wait for Detective J. Carpenter to talk to you.
Do you know if that's standard practice?
Not sure if it's standard practice or not, but just following his instruction, as if because he was going to be doing some investigation.
Would you say it's fair to say that usually a suspect being detained is allowed a phone call at some point?
Relevance.
Grounds.
Relevant, sir?
Grounds.
No. Why do you believe it's relevant?
Why would contact to the outside world be restricted?
All right, it's I'll rule that it's not relevant. Sustain the objection. Next question.
Do you recall what time you got to, I think it was you said, the hospital to pick up the suspect?
Yes, I left at 12:10. I got to the hospital around 12:18.
To the best of your recollection, do you recall being given any information at that time about the suspect being questioned?
I don't recall if I was given information on you being questioned at that time.
And you referred to a police hold room inside of the hospital?
That's correct.
So it's not unusual for someone to be detained in the police hold room inside of the hospital.
That's correct. There's an active investigation going on.
So would that be the only time if during an active investigation?
Usually, there'll be someone from the outside come into the police hold room, yes, for an active investigation.
And do you recall where in the hospital this police hold room is located?
In the hospital,
Do you recall where in the hospital it's located?
Oh my gosh, what does that matter?
it's usually by where the police officers park their vehicles through the ambulance bay, straight ahead, and it's the second to last door on the right.
To the best of your knowledge, do you know if those police hold rooms have cameras?
I'm not sure.
Before that particular incident, had you ever been in the police hold room in that hospital?
Yep. Yes, sorry.
You can say yep to him, that's all right.
And you stated that detectives informed you that they would need to speak with the detainee before any phone calls would be made.
That's correct.
To the best of your recollection, did they explain why to you?
Objection, relevance.
Grounds.
Calls for speculation.
Grounds.
I'm sorry, calls for hearsay
Grounds.
and speculation.
Are you offering it for the truth of the matter,
Yep.
sir? Then it's hearsay and it's.
And the detainee was turned over to Officer Paulson after, I'm guessing at the end of your shift.
That's correct.
Do you recall if the cell the detainee was sleeping in that night had cameras?
I'm not sure.
Sorry, I sound just like the courtroom, people coughing. Apologize. Again, he's asking a lot of useless questions. He's just wasting time. Let's get real. He loves the power he's holding. right now, right at that moment.
Do you recall who did the booking process at the Mosquito Police Department?
Yes, I believe it was Lieutenant Andrika and Officer Klink of the Mosquito Police Department.
To the best of your recollection, do you recall why one of those officers weren't doing the well-being checks?
Because you were in our custody.
It has nothing to do with anything. Dumb questions. It would be nice if he read this in his cell before coming, because I'm sure he knows who's coming in. That is, if he reads the list
Do
that
you
they give
recall
him.
when you did your report? The date of it?
I don't recall the exact day I did my report.
Was it that same evening or was it sometime after?
When you say the same evening, what day are you talking?
The same evening or morning that you ended up having to do the well-being checks at the Mosquito Police Department.
I don't recall if I did it that day, but it most definitely was done shortly after.
Shortly after, meaning a few days or a week or so?
Oh,
A few
God.
days.
Again, this has nothing to do with his case. He's just stalling.
You don't recall if it was the 29th of November of 2021?
Oh, God.
I don't recall.
When you were dispatched to the Waukesha Memorial Hospital, did you observe any FBI agents at the scene?
At the scene of the hospital?
Yes.
No.
So to the best of your recollection, it was only the two detectives that you made contact with?
Yes.
Can you explain what the mobile audio video recording system is?
It's an in-squad camera that records outside the squad car, so like in front of the squad car in the prisoner compartment. And it's a microphone that we put to our vest or on our person to record audio statements.
So it records and it's video and audio.
Correct.
Did it record the detainee your transport?
Yes, it did.
Besides the statements that you made reference to, did you observe or hear anything other than those statements?
What do you mean? Can you clarify that for me?
Did you observe anything strange or while the recording was taking place?
I don't know what you mean by strange.
Like,
Yeah.
did you notice any strange movements by the detainee? Anything that would alarm you in any way?
Nothing that would alarm me, no.
No, because he outweighs you about 200 pounds.
Did you know the extent of the investigation at the time you were dispatched to Waukesha Memorial?
No, my only task was to transport you to the Mosquito Police Department.
Yeah, just keep on reading. Don't do your homework before you come in here.
No further questions.
That
Any
was...
redirect?
Nothing else, thank you, Judge.
All right, thank you. You may step down. Go ahead and call your next witness then, please.
Detective J. Carpenter.
Thanks, Dre.
Gosh. Look at him rustling about down there. Ridiculous. Is he going to say something? Please don't. We don't need to hear you.
Good afternoon, Detective Carpenter. If you would please make your way to the witness stand, which is to my right. It is up one riser. When you get there, please remain standing. Raise your right hand, and my clerk, Teresa, will swear you in.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you, sir. Please have a seat. The first thing I will ask you to do is to state your first and last names for the record and spell each.
Sure. My name is Detective J. Carpenter. First name spelled Jay, last name spelled Carpenter.
Go ahead.
Sir, how are you employed?
I am employed as a detective with the City of Waukesha Police Department.
How long have you been in law enforcement?
18 years?
Have all those years been with the City of Waukesha Police Department?
Yes.
How long have you been detective?
Almost 5 years.
Direct your attention to November 21st of last year. Were you working on that day?
Yes, I was.
Were you working the parade?
I had actually been part of the parade. I marched in the parade as part of our Honor Guard unit and had completed my duty before the incident commenced.
So this is the City of Waukesha annual holiday parade.
Correct.
And you say that you, after you finished the parade route, where did you go?
So I went back to the City of Waukesha Police Department after I completed my part of the parade.
And did you receive information while you're at the City of Waukesha Police Department regarding something that had happened at the parade?
Objection, leading.
Overruled. You may answer, sir.
I did. I changed out of my Honor Guard uniform and I was confronted by Officer Daniel Malo. He was working as a desk officer for the department that day. Officer Malo explained that a vehicle had driven through the parade route down in downtown Waukesha, that there were approximately 30 to 40 people down, many severely injured, some possibly deceased, and that there was also an officer-involved shooting involved in the whole event.
What did you do as a result of receiving that information?
At that point, I went on duty and began heading towards the downtown area.
Where did you go specifically?
So when I headed out, there was a lot of radio traffic. It was very chaotic, very confusing. It was certainly like nothing I've ever experienced before, as far as the radio traffic. The event kind of began to mold into two different forms at that point, in that there were numerous officers calling for ambulances in the downtown area for the injured, but dispatch was also beginning to provide information that there was an individual in the area of the 500 block of Elizabeth Street, which is about a quarter of a mile off the parade route, that was loitering, and it was believed that may be the suspect, so I headed in that direction.
Now, prior to heading in that direction, did you have any information as to why this person in that area would be a suspect?
Objection leading.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes, ma'am. A description had been provided of a possible suspect, and the descriptions being provided by this dispatch of the individual now in this area were comparable, nearly identical to descriptions I was hearing of the driver from the parade incident.
What did you do then?
As I was searching the area, I heard over the police radio that officers from a separate jurisdiction had come in contact with the suspect and that he was in custody. I proceeded over to Elizabeth Street, where the suspect, who was identified in the investigation as Darrell Brooks, was already in custody.
Now, you stated that the information that you initially received with regard to the person involved's physical description, do you recall what that was?
Objection leading.
Overruled. You may answer.
Information that I heard over police radio was an African-American male, blue jeans, and a red t-shirt.
So what did you do after receiving this information about a potential person in custody?
I responded to the immediate area. Mr. Brooks at that point was already in custody. I don't recall if he was outside a squad being searched, but he was handcuffed and already effectively in custody at that point. He was placed in the rear of a city Waukesha police car, where he was taken into custody for loitering, as well as being a suspect at that point as the operator of the vehicle that went through the parade route.
Objection, I don't consent to being called that name, for the record.
Overruled. Your answer stands. Go ahead. Next question.
At the time that you made contact with this individual, did you have any information about the vehicle that had been used during the parade?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
Yes, a red SUV. That was actually a red Ford Escape, specifically.
And did you have any information if that car had been located at the time that you went to the Elizabeth Street address?
Yes, it had already been located.
Did you have any information about that red SUV prior to going to Elizabeth Street?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
The information I recall having is that the vehicle was parked over on Maple Avenue, which is about 2.5 to 3 blocks west of Elizabeth Street, where Mr. Brooks was located and taken into custody.
Objection, I don't consent to being called that name.
Overruled.
Did you have the opportunity to speak with an individual who was identified as Darrell Brooks at that Elizabeth Street address?
Called that name.
Go ahead. You may answer.
I don't believe I spoke with him at that address, but Mr. Brooks was transported to our substation located on Les Paul Parkway in the city of Waukesha, where I had opportunity to speak with him.
Did you see him at the Elizabeth Street address?
Yes, I did.
Did you see him in the court today?
I do.
I'd ask the court to ask Mr. Brooks to remove his mask.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks.
Can you identify him by where he's seated and what he's wearing?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Brooks is seated to my left, wearing a dark-colored suit jacket, multicolored tie, surgical mask on his face, shaved head, and he did have a beard at the time he took his mask off.
Let the record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant.
It will reflect, thank you.
Sir, as you see Mr. Brooks today, does he look different than he did on November 21st of last year?
Objection. Relevancy.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes, ma'am.
How?
Objection. Leading.
Overruled.
At the time of the incident, Mr. Brooks had longer hair, a braided style hair that probably went midway down his back.
How about facial wise?
He had a beard at that time, but it's a little bit shorter now. It was a little bit thicker and longer at the time.
So you stated that the defendant was transported to a substation?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Okay. And do you recall who transported him?
Specialist Mark Howard.
Did you follow Specialist Howard to the substation?
Yes, I did.
On either, should I say, at the scene, did you obtain items that were located on the defendant's person?
Yes, I did.
What did they consist of?
So the items I received that were on Mr. Brooks' person at the time of his arrest, there were several items. One of them was a Wisconsin photo identification card. So it had a picture on the ID card that I recognized as being Mr. Brooks based on the fact I was with him at this time. The name on that identification card was Darrell Edward Brooks Jr., his date of birth being February 21st, 1982. There was also a green Wisconsin Quest card with Mr. Brooks' name on it, a silver American Express debit or credit card with Mr. Brooks' name on it, 2 Visa debit cards, one black, one white, both which had Mr. Brooks' name on it, and then there was a Georgia EBT card which had the name of Mr. Brooks' girlfriend on it.
Other than the identifying information that you just testified to, is anything else turned over to you that was removed from Darrell Brooks?
Objection. I don't consent to being called that name. It is leading.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yeah, they
Yes,
found
ma'am, there
all
was
those cards with your name
$4
on it.
cash, but also a Ford ignition key.
Now, you stated that there was a suspect vehicle that had been located.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you have any information prior to your discussions with the defendant about who the owner of that vehicle was?
Objection. Leading.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes, I did.
And who was the owner of that vehicle?
A female by the name of Dawn Woods.
And do you recall what her address was?
Objection.
Overruled. The witness may answer.
4014 North 19th Street in the city of Milwaukee.
So 19th Street, you said?
Yes, ma'am.
Objection. Leading witness.
Overruled. The answer may stand.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 172. That's going to appear on the screen in front of you. Before we do that, these identifiers that you located for Darrell Brooks, did you take a picture of them?
Yes, ma'am.
Objection. I don't consent to being called that name for the 100th time.
Nobody cares.
Overruled.
And let me know when you see something in your...
I see it.
Okay. Do you recognize these items as those items you just described as having been removed from the defendant's person?
Yes, I do.
I'd ask the court to admit this exhibit into evidence and to publish it for the jury.
Objection. Relevancy.
Objection is overruled. Exhibit 172 is received. Permission to publish is granted.
If you can specifically zoom in on
There it
those
is with his
addresses.
name on it. So funny.
The address on that Wisconsin identification card, is that the same
Well.
address that you recited for Dawn Woods?
Objection. Leading.
Overruled.
140 pounds,
Yes, ma'am, it
5'8". It was my birth weight. Not a driver license.
And what was the date that that card was issued?
Objection. Relevancy.
Overruled. The witness may answer.
June 14th, 2021.
And the picture on the identification card, would that be consistent or inconsistent with what the defendant looked like on November 21st of last year?
Objection, leading.
Overruled. You may answer.
It's almost exactly what he looked like.
Yeah, like a hot mess. That's how he looked.
Now, as you were at the substation, what did you do that can be removed? I'm sorry.
Thank you.
For the most part, what we were doing down there is obtaining basic booking information. So I confirmed Mr. Brooks' first name, middle name, last name, date of birth. I obtained an emergency contact for him, phone numbers, whether he was working or not, going to school. Obtained information about his tattoos, piercings, things of that nature. Personal identification information.
Okay. And who did he say his emergency contact was?
Objection, relevancy.
Overruled. You may answer.
Mr. Brooks indicated his emergency contact person was Dawn Woods.
And what relationship was Dawn Woods to him?
Objection, relevancy.
Overruled. You may answer.
It is Mr. Brooks' mother.
And did you subsequently obtain a phone number for Dawn Woods?
I did.
Objection, relevancy.
Overruled. The witness may answer.
What is that phone number, if you recall?
Objection, relevancy.
414-610-2153.
Now, when you asked the defendant for his name, what did he tell you his name was?
Objection, relevancy.
Overruled.
It's very relevant.
I believe he indicated it was Darrell, Darrell, which, in speaking with him, and I can confirm seeing him today, Darrell Brooks or Darrell Brooks are one and the same. They are the same person.
Objection. Yes.
Did you become aware of any video evidence that was collected in the downtown area during the parade, capturing a picture of the person who drove the red SUV through the parade?
Objection, leading.
Overruled. The witness may answer.
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And you said you saw that?
Yes, I did.
I'm going to ask that Exhibit 120, which has been previously admitted into evidence, be published for the jury.
Go ahead.
Is that the photographic evidence that you just testified to?
Objection.
Overruled.
Yes, ma'am, it is.
And do you recall approximately, was this the car being driven while the parade, in the midst of the parade, after the parade, or before the parade, if you know?
Objection, hearsay.
Yeah.
Overruled.
Nothing is hearsay.
So the photo we're looking
Revealing
at right here is
photo
right
of
in the
him.
middle of the parade. So right now, the vehicle is within the parade route while the parade is ongoing.
Mm-hmm.
And were you able to positively identify the driver of that vehicle?
Yes, ma'am,
Objection,
I was.
hearsay.
Overruled.
Who is the driver of that vehicle?
The driver of the vehicle is Darrell Brooks.
Approximately how long?
Are you done with this exhibit?
I am, yes.
Thank you.
How long were you at the substation?
Probably about 2 to 2.5 hours.
Why were you there versus anywhere else?
So at this particular time, the department was in a transition. Our original building was under construction. The building we were primarily working out of did not have a booking room, did not have a place to take prisoners, so we had to go down to the substation instead of our own actual police department.
Other than collecting the information that you had previously told us about, including emergency contact information, name, things like that, what else were you doing at the substation?
Objection, leading.
Overruled. The witness may answer.
Mainly at that time, just waiting for further information as to what was going to be done next. Like I say, the scene was very, very chaotic. I know there were so many victims out there, they didn't even have enough ambulances to transport them all. So officers, it took, I feel like probably hours to really get it under control. So I was just waiting on more information from Detective Casey, who had been assigned as lead, to determine what steps would be appropriate next. It's just being there with Mr. Brooks and making sure he was safe and remained in custody. I didn't have a real good idea due to the chaos of what was going on away from where I was.
Now, you testified about some of the property that was recovered from the defendant, and you stated that one of the items was a card in the name of Erica Patterson. Do you recall that?
Objection. He did not say who was in the name of.
Sustained.
And if you can zoom in on the Georgia EBT card, whose name is on that card?
Erica Patterson.
Leading.
Overruled. Go ahead, you can answer that again.
Erica Patterson.
Did you, at the time that you were at the substation, have any information regarding an Erica Patterson and her relationship to Darrell Brooks?
Objection that I don't consent to being called that name.
Even without your
You may answer,
ID
sir.
Objection
and your
is
name.
hearsay.
Yeah, be quiet.
Overruled.
Not at that time, no.
Did you later learn of a relationship between the defendant and Erica Patterson?
Objection hearsay.
Overruled.
Yes, I did.
And what was that relationship?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
Ms. Patterson was a significant other or girlfriend to Mr. Brooks and mother of one of his children.
Objection, not girlfriend.
Overruled.
You can't be saying that stuff.
Last statement, as Mr. Brooks is not testifying at the moment.
Although he tries to all the time.
Now, when you made contact with Darrell Brooks or while you're making contact with Darrell Brooks at the substation, did he complain of any injuries?
Objection. I don't consent to being called that name. I
Overruled.
think
You
the
may answer.
prosecution is trying to be funny at this point.
Yes, ma'am, he did. He
Well, I didn't hear the last thing, but I believe it was commentary. So just
Yes,
state your objection and
prostitution
I'll
is-
rule on it. It's been overruled. You may answer.
Prostitution's trying to be funny at this point or
Yes,
something.
ma'am, he did. He complained of two injuries, one to his knee, but primarily and mostly of an injury to what was his right shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
Did he say how that occurred?
Objection hearsay.
Overruled.
Yes, he did. Mr. Brooks told us that his shoulder was injured when he was arrested, indicating the arresting officers slammed him to the ground.
Did you have the opportunity at any point in this investigation to review body camera footage from Officer Rebecca Carpenter?
Yes, ma'am.
And that was at the residence where the defendant was taken into custody?
Yes, ma'am, it was.
Did you see any unlawful use of force on the defendant during that time?
Objection hearsay.
Overruled. The witness may answer.
No, ma'am. In fact, there was no force used at all. Mr. Brooks was given verbal directions by officers to get down onto the ground, and he did so entirely on his own power.
Based upon his complaints, however, was the decision made to transport him for medical clearance?
Yes, ma'am.
And where did you transport the defendant?
Waukesha Memorial Hospital.
Do you know approximately what time you arrived there?
I don't remember the exact time. It was sometime, I believe it was between about 8 and 9 p.m.
Upon entering, who was with you and Mr. Brooks?
Objection. I don't consent to being called that name. Is leading the witness.
Overruled as to both. You may answer.
Detective Ben Stern.
Was he partnering with you in this part of the investigation?
Yes, ma'am, he was.
Okay. And when you entered the hospital, what observations, if any, did you make?
Entering the hospital, we escorted Mr. Brooks, to a room so that he could receive medical clearance. I know there were some individuals from the parade that were injured in nearby rooms. I didn't really see many of them, but I knew they were close by. So we escorted Mr. Brooks into a room, trying to keep away from the victim so as to not make the incident any more tension-filled than it already was.
How busy was it at the hospital when you brought Mr. Brooks in?
Objection leading.
Overruled. The witness may answer.
Extremely. There were victims due to the mass amount of casualties, many of which, survived but still needed extensive medical attention. It was very busy. Many of the victims were taken to alternate hospitals because Waukesha Memorial could not handle the amount of patients that were coming in.
And I know I've said it before, but I can't wrap my head around the fact that one person who does not consent to being called Darrell Brooks or Darrell Brooks or whomever, one person did all of that damage, all those injuries, impacted so many lives, and is unfazed by it. He can only focus on himself, a true narcissist. It baffles me every time. I'll never stop being baffled about it. Mind-boggling, to use his words. Okay.
Now, approximately how long did you spend with Mr. Brooks at Waukesha Memorial Hospital?
Objection. I was consent to being called that.
Overruled.
Probably about 4 hours.
Is that in addition to the time that you would have spent with him at the substation?
Yes, ma'am.
Leading.
Overruled.
What was his demeanor?
Extremely calm. If I would describe it, I guess, to put it in context for the court, very similar to mine right now. The conversations I had with him, as far as getting his identification info and such, he talked to me as calmly as I'm speaking now. Based on his body language, his tone of voice, his attitude, you'd have never known he had done something or was in custody for having done something so serious.
Did he ask you why he was in custody at the substation?
Yes.
And what did you tell him?
At that point, I simply told Mr. Brooks it was a loitering investigation and possible disorderly conduct.
Now, you just testified that he was the suspect in the parade mass casualty incident. Why didn't you tell him that?
At that time, I didn't want to
Look at him, Brooks.
One, overly anxious. Two, there was a lot of information. Initially, I still didn't know. It was initially, as part of the chaos, I believe at one point we were actually looking for as many as four people. So I didn't know how deeply he was or was not involved. It was believed that, and known that he was somehow involved and knew something. So before I even addressed those issues, one, I wanted to make sure I knew all the facts and had as much information as I could. More than anything for the integrity of the case.
When you talk about the integrity of the case and your discussions with him, did the defendant appear to know what was going on around him? When I say that, I guess, was he aware of where he was, who you were, things like that?
Objection. Speculative.
As to the way it was rephrased in the second half of that, I will allow it. You may answer.
Yes, he did. He seemed, he was alert. When asked questions, like, for example, his phone number, his emergency contact, the answers were consistent with the question asked. He did not have slurred speech. He did not show any signs of being under the influence or in mental crisis.
Did your opinion change at any time while you were with him on November 21st?
Objection. Vague.
Overruled. You may answer.
No, it did not.
Now, during the 4 hours that you were at the hospital, were you, did he continue to complain about shoulder pain?
Yes, he did.
Were his actions always consistent with his expression of the pain in the shoulder?
Objection. Speculative.
Overruled. You may answer.
No, they were not.
Can you describe for the jury what you mean by that?
Objection. speculative. How can he know how somebody's body is feeling?
Oh my gosh.
Overruled, he may answer, given, as long as he answers with his understanding. Or what he saw.
Observations is what I was saying.
Observation, thank you, I think that's what you said, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So Mr. Brooks, when he would speak to me throughout the evening, he would move his arms about, he'd put them out to his side, he'd move them back and forth, he'd raise them up and down. He was talking about being in severe pain, but I would describe the way he'd move his arms and such as basic body mannerisms, and basic interpersonal interactions. His hands, his arms, everything moved completely normally when we would speak. There was no favoring of that shoulder or anything to indicate, other than what he was saying through physical action, that there was any type of injury there that I observed.
Now, at some point, I strike that. During this time that you were with him and he was getting medically cleared, first of all, did he get medically cleared?
Yes, he did.
Objection, speculative.
He didn't need to be.
Hold on,
Oh, sorry.
overruled, his answer may stand.
Did he need any treatment while at the hospital?
No, he was checked out. The doctor came in and looked at his shoulder. I do not believe any medications were given. There may have been, I believe they took an x-ray to check it, but he was ultimately cleared and turned over to police custody.
And during the time that you were with him while he was getting medically cleared, what type of conversation were you having? Was it general conversation, or were you talking to him about the loitering?
Objection, relevancy.
Overruled, you may answer.
The conversation was general. Mr. Brooks asked several times if I would give him more information as to why he was in custody, and I would continue to tell him it was for the loitering violation. But the conversations were mostly, we talked about sports. The Green Bay Packers had played that day. We talked about the game. I remember him telling me that baseball was his favorite sport, and things of that nature. He was upset that the Packers had lost the game. So it was general conversation, not related to why he was specifically in custody.
At some point, did you decide that you were going to try to talk to the defendant about at least the loitering incident?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Relevancy.
Overruled, the witness may answer.
Do you know approximately what time that took place?
11:04 p.m.
And how did you approach this interview? You've now been with Mr. Brooks for maybe 5 hours, would that be fair?
Yes.
How did you decide to approach this interview with him?
Objection, leading.
Overruled, the witness may answer.
I just explained to Mr. Brooks that I simply wanted to speak with him about why he was in the neighborhood where he was discovered that night, what was going on, what led to him being there, and that I was just looking to have answers to that if he was willing to provide them.
And was Mr. Brooks in a room that had the ability to record the conversation that you had with him?
Objection, I don't consent to being called on that.
Overruled, you may answer.
No, not in the manner we would if we were at our typical police departments. Our police department would have a camera mounted in the corner that would record audio and video. They did have a security camera, but it had no audio capability.
So what did you do?
I utilized my department-issued phone and recorded the audio of the interview that way.
So you had the audio on your phone and the visual, or there was a visual recording, is that true?
Yes, so the audio was on my phone, and then the visual recording was through the hospital security system.
Bless you. So they didn't marry up with one another, correct? I mean, in terms of, I should strike that. You couldn't play the audio with the visual. They're two different recordings.
Yes.
Okay. Who else was with you during this interview?
At that time, Detective Ben Stern from my department was with me, as well as 2 federal agents from the FBI, Agent Mary Davidson and Agent Jeremy, I believe it's Pilichowski.
Why were they there?
So the FBI came involved in the investigation early on because we were not certain at that point whether or not this was a terrorist incident.
So how did it work? Were they in the room and then Mr. Brooks was brought into the room, or how did that work?
Objection, I don't consent to being called that name and is leading the witness.
Overruled as to the name, sustained as to the form of the question.
How did you all get into the same room?
So I was in the room waiting for Mr. Brooks. Mr. Brooks was brought from another room by Detective Stern. At this point, the audio recording on my phone was already running. I believe the 2 FBI agents were with me in the room, and then, like I say, Mr. Brooks was escorted in by Detective Stern.
Did you introduce yourselves? Well, you had been with Mr. Brooks previously, correct?
Objection.
Yes, I had.
Overruled, you may answer.
Yes, I had.
Is he lazy?
Had he been introduced to
Say
Detective
what he
Stern
said.
already?
Objecting to.
Yes, he had.
And how about the 2 FBI agents?
It was at that point that they introduced themselves to Mr. Brooks.
What was his reaction to that when they introduced themselves?
Objection, relevancy.
Overruled, you may answer.
Very surprised. He said the word FBI, in the form of a question. I could tell his tone was very surprised. It wasn't as calm as he had been. He seemed concerned, uneasy, and within about a minute after stating that, he questioned the agents further as to whether they were really FBI agents, and he was surprised to see them there, and he had never actually seen an FBI agent before, so he was definitely surprised, and I could tell he was uncomfortable.
Did you record the entire conversation you had with the defendant?
Yes, at that point, all that is on recording. At that point, yes.
And have you had the opportunity to review that recording prior to today's date?
I have.
I would like to admit Exhibit 81 for the court. It is the audio interview of the defendant that took place on November 21st, 2021. It's previously been addressed by this court.
Objection.
Remind me how long that is again.
Your Honor, the entire video is 25 minutes approximately. I'm asking to play from 4 minutes and 25 seconds to 14 minutes and 25 seconds approximately. Well, it would be 10 minutes.
I presume you'll have questions regarding that once you play it.
Correct.
All right, given that it's just before 5 o'clock, I'm going to stop for the day. We can pick up with this tomorrow. You can put down for the moment, and I will have our instruction for the jurors. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, do not begin your deliberations and discussion of this case until all the evidence is presented and I have.
So all she's doing at this point, Judge Darrow, is reading the jury instructions, and then we're done. And then Detective Carpenter will continue the next day. Or I didn't realize it was this video because I'd play to the end to see if there's anything worth watching. And they this is the one where he dramatically tears up the paper she gave him on the subject matter jurisdiction that we know that he will still probably ask till the end of time because he thinks he's so, being a sovereign citizen. Oh my gosh, they're the most annoying people. I don't even know what to say. It's just annoying as hell. But I know, I believe it was the last video I dropped, which I know it's been a week. That's crazy. But time flies when your tripod breaks and you get a head cold and you go up to North Florida. But anyhow, the video I dropped where I think it's Dr. G explains I put a link in there, and he does a really good body language reading on Darrell. I mean, for somebody who hasn't seen the I don't think he watched the trial, as much as we have, but he really got a lot of things, his narcissism and that he believes that he is better than everyone, which is so hilarious, but he does so, and he's confident, and maybe because he knows he's going to be in prison forever or not, he's not afraid to just go on and do anything outrageous because he's an attention whore. Now, that's not what Dr. G said. I'm saying that. He truly is. He loves being in the spotlight, and he probably knows once this gig is up, he's never going to be like this again. So this is his moment to play attorney in an oversized suit, all 140 pounds of him. And so I'm going to see if I can play it. My technical skills are not good, but I'm going to see if I can play it in slow motion so we can dramatically see the paper being torn. So we'll give it a try. Let's see. Boy, I must be desperate for something to do. No, I'm easily entertained. What do they say? Simple minds like simple things.
Home in the evening to discuss this case with another member of your household, but you...
Oh, and you can thank me because I went past the part where he was leaned over and blowing snot, and I think some of it looked like it went into his mask. It was disgusting. So thank you for that. I mean, you're welcome. No, I'm not thanking you, but you're welcome because I know you're going to thank me for that because it was disgusting.
May not do so. This case must be decided by you, the jurors, based on the evidence presented in the courtroom. People not serving on this jury have not heard the evidence, and it is improper for them to influence your deliberations and decision in this case. After the trial is completed, you are free to communicate with anyone in any manner. These rules are intended to assure that jurors remain impartial throughout the trial.
We'll see how he prepares for his big moment. Yep, get the Bible all
violated these rules,
poised.
you should report that to me. If jurors do not comply with these rules, it could result in a new trial involving additional time and significant...
Y'all know he's had that paper there probably since whenever she gave it to him, and he's just waiting. He had it placed strategically. Now he has his Bible poised, and he's getting ready for the dramatic tear. First, we'll do it in real time, and then I'll try to do it in slow motion. Oh, goodness. Look, if you're still watching me by now, you're as crazy as me, but in a good way, because we're good crazy, right? Okay, here we go.
Significant expense to the parties and the taxpayers. You are to decide the case solely on the evidence offered and received.
Look at how he's positioning himself.
You are excused for the evening. We'll see you tomorrow morning. All rise for the jurors, please.
And see how he's looking up? If you didn't watch Dr. G said he's obviously wanting to do this for a dramatic showing because when he heard a little bit of a noise or something, he looked up because he wants to make sure. He clearly wants to make sure that everyone notices him. Oh my God, he's such an idiot. Anyhow, there we go. And yet he wants her to read all of his, well, they're technically called inmate communication forms. But if you haven't been on here before, I call them, just for him, his idiot complain forms. Oh my gosh, she's such an horse. Okay, family, I hope you enjoyed. I hope everyone's doing well. I'm on my own right now, which is good because the house is quiet. It's just the 2 dogs and me. And so I'm going to try to work to get some more out over this holiday weekend so that if y'all are feeling, lonely or whatever, you can join me for holiday with Sally the Seeker and Darrell. So you know what to do. Be kind to one another. Be kind to you. Thank you so much for watching, commenting, subscribing. I love you, and I'll see you the next time.